Hey, Antioch family, I want to give you a quick update on the status of us meeting together as a church. First of all, many of you guys saw today that President Trump announced that churches are an essential service in our country and invited churches to open up their doors as soon as this weekend. Now, let me affirm that gathering together in person is a core component of who we are as a church. Throughout Scripture, we see people in the Old Testament and New Testament gathering together to worship together, for fellowship, for sharing of life together, for the breaking of bread and prayers, and even in Acts 2, in the very core of who the early church was and who we are. And so that will always be a part of who we are. Now, as we look forward, there's a number of complexities that we need to think about, pray into, and have answers for. Number one, I know that across the board, there are different opinions on when and how we should reopen church. First of all, just from a level of experts, as one pastor friend said, there are people on one side who are wise and experts saying that we should wait as long as possible to open up for the safety of many. Then there are experts on the other side who are very wise to say we should gather together as soon as possible for the well-being and safety of many, because there are other challenges that come as we don't gather together. And at the same time, many of us would say, and many experts would say, we don't really fully know the way forward. I also know that there's many of you who have different opinions, who have different fears or different eagerness and are ready to get back together or afraid to get back together, or maybe have different priorities in our gathering back together. We have a church survey we've created, and we are sending it out in attachment to this video, and we want to invite you to fill it out so we can know where you're at. Now, that being said, there are some real complexities to what's ahead. If we waited as long as possible, I think we'd miss some of the needs and some of what God has for us in coming together as a church family. At the same time, if we were to open up today, as many pastors have said, that would present some real problems as well. You see, every gathering is being asked to have social distancing still in place. So let's say we're to gather together this Sunday, what would we do with kids ministry? Or how would we file in and out the door? Will we have people come into a single file line? Do we have people take tickets? How do we break it up into 6 feet? And what do we do, again, with kids that don't know how to socially distance? There's some real problems in thinking through how would that happen logistically. And then there's some questions of, would that be a meaningful service or would that be a distracting service? And then the reality is, I know that many of you would even have different answers to that question. And so it leaves us in a place of really needing to seek the Lord and also seek wisdom on how we proceed forward as a church. So I want to share a few things that we're committed to in this process and moving forward. Number one, we're committed to trusting God. You see, I believe God is sovereign. I believe God has a plan. And I personally, as a leader of this church, although I want to be back together immediately because I miss you, I feel deep rest in God's plan and sovereignty. I'm so encouraged at the many things God is doing in so many of you during this time. There's been great fruit from this time, and I'm so proud of you as a church for the way you've stepped up, loved one another, even if it's over Zoom, not what we want to do, and loved our city in so many ways. I'm so proud of you guys. So we're committed to trusting God and trusting that He has a plan. Secondly, we're committed to being the church in whatever form or fashion or venue that is. We're committed to loving God, to loving one another in an Acts 2 community, and to loving our neighbors and changing the world around us. Of course, we want to do that being together as soon as possible, but regardless of whatever guidelines we are adhering to, we're committed to being the church, and the church hasn't fully stopped. Beyond that, we're committed to seeking the wisdom and counsel of those experts, of those in authority, and other pastors and leaders. So I'm in contact with churches across Fullerton, I've actually had the opportunity to gather lead pastors from across Fullerton twice in the last month, and for fellowship, for prayer, and also talking about how we're moving forward. As well, I'm a part of a group of pastors across Orange County who are not only seeking the Lord and talking about how we can best move forward together. We're also in contact with the Orange County Board of Supervisors and in dialogue there. In addition, I know that there should be some information coming from the state on Monday in regards to health guidelines of how we gather together. So there are a lot of unanswered questions. I can guarantee you that we as a church are not only seeking God, but we're seeking counsel of experts. We're in fellowship with other churches who are seeking counsel on how to do this together. On top of that, I want to invite us as a church to remain flexible through this process. We don't fully know what's going to come down the pipeline, and we're seeking God and seeking the counsel of experts and seeking wisdom along the way. And that might mean we are open-handed on our expectations. I know some of us have preferences one way or the other, but I want to invite all of us, as we're all trying to do our best and all trying to seek the Lord, to remain open-handed on how this plays out. In addition, I want to invite us to honor one another. The reality is there are differences of opinions, and there are people on one side and people on the other. But instead of allowing this to be divisive in our church and to cause mistrust of motives or guessing what people's thoughts or fears are, let's honor one another through this process. Let's believe the best in one another, and let's ultimately, of course, trust God. So let's come together during this time and seek the Lord rather than be driven apart. Again, we've made a survey for you to fill out. We'd love for you to do that to help inform us of where you guys are at and where your needs are at and how your heart's doing as we move forward as a church family together. Again, absolutely want to see you as soon as possible. We sincerely miss you guys. We can't wait to be back together again. We're going to continue to send updates to you on how we're going to proceed forward. If you could please fill out that survey, pray along with us, and until you hear more, we're going to move forward as we have been, and we'll stay in contact with you. Praying with you. Love you guys.